Welcome to Tier 4, the center of the iceberg. Hungry, hungry piggies. To really kickstart the iceberg and the biggest layer, we have a classic. Hungry, hungry piggies from Tom LG 1992 on YouTube. This is a classic Angry Birds video from 2011 of a simple 3D animation of the game, with all your favorite characters and the purple bird that never existed on the official games. Pizza Bird. This is a fan-made bird which is just a recolor of Terrence with some cheesy extras. Honestly, I don't know what happened during the creative process of the character, but they cooked. The Pizza Bird never made an appearance in any official material, and it's unlikely that will ever happen. Greybird. This is a mysterious character that only made an appearance once on the very first Angry Birds loading screen. For years, many speculated that it was an earlier version of Matilda or the Mighty Eagle, but both were incorrect. It was confirmed in 2023 by one of the devs that it's actually just an early version of Bomb before he gained his explosive powers. But recently, it seems like the official Angry Birds Twitter account is treating him like his own character, so maybe we'll see more of him someday. Realistic images. This is referring to a collection of images depicting realistic Angry Birds and pigs, and these were made by the artist Sam Spratt. You've probably already seen these images somewhere on the internet. These became a big meme in recent years. Angry Birds Trilogy. Angry Birds Trilogy is a 2012 compilation game released for the Wii, PS3, Xbox 360, Wii U, PS Vita and 3DS. It was just a port of the first three Angry Birds games, that being the original, Seasons and Rio, but this time in HD and with better graphics, at least the home console ports. This was the first time Angry Birds was playable on home consoles, like the PS3 and the Wii, so it has some significance. PUBG collab. In 2019, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG, received an Angry Birds collab with the movie designs. This collab came with new cosmetics and a promotional video, which doesn't look too bad. Tony, also known as Blue Terrence, is Terrence's cousin from Finland, funnily enough. He made his first appearance on the 2014 episode On Thin Ice in Angry Birds Seasons. Tony's ability is similar to Silver's from Angry Birds 2, but without the little loop animation. Tony simply slams down when tapping on the screen. 10 years after his debut, Tony returned in Angry Birds Reloaded. The Blues gender. Something that comes into question with Angry Birds fans is the Blues gender. There are some people that believe they're male, but there's also some people who believe they're female. But in the end of the day, who really cares? Amazing Alex. Amazing Alex was a 2012 puzzle game made by Rovio. The main objective of the game is to guide the ball to a certain location by creating a trajectory with random objects. It was a fun game, and pretty sure anyone who played Angry Birds from 2012 to 2013 was exposed to the game because Rovio advertised this game hard. Later the game was removed from the App Store and Google Play Store in 2015. It was a fun game, but only for the first 10 minutes. Rovio wanted to replicate the success of Angry Birds, but it didn't work. Angry Birds original ending. This isn't a known fact, but the original ending animation of the episode Mine and Dine from Angry Birds Classic made many people think that this was the final episode. Cause in the final cutscene we can see a beaten up King Pig with his eyes closed. The same happened in the other episodes, but he at least blinked once or twice to signal that he would return, but here, he looks dead. Later, when the next episode released, the animation was changed to show the King Pig blink. Red's Mighty Feathers. Red's Mighty Feathers was a special episode that released in 2013 on Angry Birds Classic. The main gimmick of this episode was giving Red the ability to head towards any direction by tapping the screen. It was a good skill, but it was exclusive to this episode only. The levels also got an Angry Birds Trilogy theme, but it was removed on subsequent updates. It was a unique episode, but way too different from the other episodes. Beta Chuck. In early versions of the original Angry Birds, Chuck had a completely different design in the cutscenes. He was way smaller, even smaller than the Blues, his hair was yellow, and in general, the design was weird. Everyone calls him Beta Chuck because he's clearly from an earlier build and was accidentally left in by the devs. Bomb has a bomb inside him. Yep, according to this image, Bomb has a literal explosive inside him. Strange. Balkan Blast Remix. Balkan Blast Remix is a remix of the Angry Birds theme made for the game Just Dance 2016. It was also featured in other Just Dance titles like Just Dance Now and Just Dance Plus. It's a good remix, but the original's better though. Angry Birds Under Pigstruction. This was a placeholder name for Angry Birds 2 during its development, and for the game's beta. The test beta released in Canada and Australia in 2015. After a few months, the real name was revealed as Angry Birds 2 and the rest is history. Momp. Like the name suggests, This is Bomb's mom and she's a pretty obscure character. She only made 2 appearances. One was on the Angry Birds social media account showing a Mother's Day card made by Bomb, and the second appearance was on the Angry Birds movie too, although she's only mentioned. Definitely a character we need to see more of. Definitely. Bomb vs India. Speaking of Bomb, did you know we bombed India? Jokes aside, this is a video uploaded by Sony Pictures India in 2019 to promote the release of the Angry Birds movie too. The video shows Bomb being completely rejected by society in India. It's kinda sad in a way. The production quality is bad coming from Sony, but it's a charming video. Maximus Overdrive. Maximus Overdrive is a YouTube channel created in 2018 specialized on Angry Birds merchandise, more specifically on Angry Birds plushes made by Commonwealth in the early 2010s. Most videos consist on mini documentaries on a specific series of Angry Birds plushes, such as the Christmas season plush set or the classic set. I've seen some of his videos and oh my, this collection was my 5-year-old dream. Sucks it's expensive now. This really is an expensive hobby. Anyways, if you like that kind of stuff, I highly recommend this channel. Silver Plush. Speaking of plushes, in 2016, Rovi ran a giveaway on their Facebook page for an exclusive silver plush from Angry Birds 2. The quantity was limited and the plush became a collector's item, but since then, the plush has been re-released in Finland and is available in Finnish stores. Outside from Finland, the plush is still rare and expensive. Pencil Toppers. This is referring to small pencil topper plushes released in the early 2010s. Many were made and they look so cute. I never had any of them, but they look so tiny and cute. I love them. Telepizza plushes. This entry is only referring to the Telepizza plushes, but might as well mention the game. Angry Birds Telepizza was a web game made during a Telepizza campaign in Spain in 2012. It was just a simple Angry Birds ad game, just like Angry Birds Cheetos and Coca-Cola, but with a pizza theme. And this campaign also extended beyond the web game, cause only 1 year later, in 2013, you could get an Angry Birds plush by purchasing pizza on Telepizza restaurants. That's awesome, and these plushes are not bad. I even have some of them that came from another promotion from another store in 2016. Angry Birds Star Wars 2 prototype plushes. In the early years, every time a new Angry Birds game released, a plush collection based on said game would release, like Seasons, Rio and Space. And in 2014, for the release of Angry Birds Star Wars 2, numerous plushes were made and scheduled to release, but due to royalty issues, the plushes were never officially released. However, we have photos of the prototypes and these look better than everything that came before. Seriously, these are amazing and Commonwealth went all out on the prototypes. It's a shame we never got them. Angry Birds Go prototypes. Similar to the last entry, for the release of Angry Birds Go, a bunch of prototype plushes were made but never released. But the reason for this being cancelled was because the Angry Birds franchise was starting to decline and becoming unpopular in the eyes of the public. I don't know if this is the real reason, but if it is, ouch. These plushes look cool, not as good as the Star Wars ones, but they look decent. If you like these plushes and want to own them, be prepared to spend a lot of money. Seriously, sometimes I look stupid looking at the prices for these. Purple Bird. This entry is referring to a specific bootleg plush that was featured on the channel Luigi Fan 01. It's a small bootleg plush of the red bird, but purple, and it was released in the early 2010s. Not much information is known about this plush, it's just a weird bootleg that became a joke on the community. Construction Hat Pick plush. This is one of the rarest and most sought after plushes of the Commonwealth collection. There's 2 variations of the Construction Hat Pick plush, one with a hard plastic hat and one with a soft hat, but that one is extremely rare and expensive. There is not much to say about this plush. Angry Birds Tazos. Moving over from the plushes, let's talk about Angry Birds Tazos. In 2012, PepsiCo ran a promotion where you could get Angry Birds Tazos with PepsiCo products, stuff like Cheetos and such. In case you don't know, Tazos are basically little plastic discs. I'm pretty sure they have different names depending on the region, but here in Portugal and other countries that the promotion ran, it's called Tazos. These featured small illustrations of the characters from Angry Birds Classic and Seasons. And the neat part about these Tazos is that you could build structures and launch them, cause these had little holes on the edges. And only 1 year later, PepsiCo ran a second promotion, but this time based on Angry Birds Space, and these were so much cooler. The illustrations were way better and the colors popped more on these. The only problem I saw with these were the quantity. Was PepsiCo really expecting us to buy 50 plus Cheeto bags to get every Tazo? Yes they did. Ruffle. Ruffle was a streaming platform released in 2014 by Rovio. It was iOS exclusive, and if you played games like Angry Birds Space or Bad Piggies, you would find it on the menu. This service featured original content, but it was a small selection with around 6 shows in total. In 2017, the service was discontinued and the shows were privated on YouTube. Reload. Reload was Rovio's original name when it was founded in 2003. During this time, Rovio, or should I say Reload, sported a blue logo. This name never caught on, and in January 2005, Reload finally changed their name to Rovio Mobile. Freddie Mercury. No, Freddie Mercury isn't a playable character in Angry Birds, but you know what's the next best thing? A Freddie Mercury lookalike. This entry is referring to the Angry Birds animation Freddy for a Day. This animation was made to commemorate Freddie Mercury's birthday in 2013, and it features Chuck cosplaying as Freddy himself. Sweet! For a period of time, it was also featured in the loading screen for the Freddy for a Day tournament in Angry Birds Friends. Unfortunately, he was never playable. Super Angry Birds. This is a 4-issue comic miniseries that features the Angry Birds cast in a superhero form. All of the issues were released on the same day, April 3rd, 2015, in digital form. Around 2016, all issues were released physically. This was also the first time we saw the birds and pigs with limbs. Weird. The slingshot was originally a canon. I couldn't find anything about this one, so it's either a hoax or it's from an obscure interview or concept art. Cause I couldn't find it. I'm sorry. Hummingbird. The Hummingbird was a power-up in Angry Birds Seasons that replaces the current bird on the slingshot with the Hummingbird. It's just red with a helmet. He can home in on the pig that is closer to him. In this state, the Hummingbird cuts through any structure, although it can only be used one time per level. Lego Angry Birds. This is a 2011 video uploaded by fellow YouTuber HisMario123. Big shout out to him. This video consists of a slideshow of random images of unofficial Angry Birds LEGO builds. Keep in mind that this was before Angry Birds Connect and the actual LEGO Angry Birds came out, even if they look completely different. The video currently sits with 4 million views, so there's a high chance you've probably already seen this one. More than a decade later, and it's still one of the best videos of all time. Dead Hell. This one is a throwback. To understand this entry, we have to go back to 2012. If you're an older fan, you've probably seen this Arabic parody video called Angry Revolutionaries. It's a very well done animation despite not knowing what they're saying or what the heck any of this means. Whatever, the video begins with a normal cutscene from the game, but the only difference is that Hal is dead, and this probably traumatized some people that watched this video when they were younger. Not me though. Killer Angry Birds. This is a 2011 comedy skit made by Kevin LaShawn. It has almost 20 million views and I almost forgot about it before making the Iceberg. The nostalgia really hits with this one. I recommend giving it a watch, it's only a minute long. Bowser12345. Bowser12345 is a YouTube channel who is still active and made videos about Angry Birds with some other popular franchises in the mix, like SpongeBob. Nowadays, the channel posts about Teen Titans Go and Sonic the Hedgehog, with the same idea of mixing other franchises in the mix. But lately, they've started posting brainrot content slop on YouTube Shorts. What a shame. Theme parks. The Angry Birds franchise actually has some theme parks. There's Angry Birds Activity Park in Finland, and they have another in Spain. They even have Angry Birds themed Topgolf. But the biggest theme park of them all is Angry Birds World in Qatar, and seeing photos of this place is absolutely crazy. Angry Birds Store. This is likely referring to physical Angry Birds stores that existed in the early 2010s. This was a chain of retail stores that began in 2012 with the first location in Finland, and it sold stuff like plushes, toys, shirts, and other merchandise. Unexpectedly, that store shut down in 2014 and the other locations in 2015. Some Angry Birds shops still exist, but they're gift shops and they mostly don't sell the same stuff. Purple Feathers. This entry is referring to a purple feather sprite that went unused on the original Angry Birds. These were rumored to belong to Terrence, but they clearly weren't. These were from someone else that never made the cut. And it's no surprise that later down the line, the first concept art of the purple bird was shown to the public in the Rovio Museum. Boss Test. This was a music track that was discovered in the game files of Angry Birds Space. The meaning of this music is unknown, but judging by the name, it looks like it was used by the devs during testing of boss stages. But who knows, it was probably made for the playtesters to have something to jam to. George. George was the first version of Red and the very first Angry Bird. He's very similar to Red, just poorly made and lacking some features. It's genuinely impressive how most of Red's design didn't change from George. Rovio was cooking back then. Intel Egg. This rather peculiar egg was part of a special promotion between Angry Birds and, you guessed it, Intel. An Intel-themed Angry Birds collaboration was planned with 5 exclusive Golden Egg levels and were supposed to release on Angry Birds seasons, but unfortunately, this collab never officially released. And those 5 levels got stuck on Limbo, and thus, that Intel Egg sprite went unused. Ted 2. There's a scene on the 2015 movie, Ted 2, where Ted is in court, he gets mad at the jury and to blow off some steam, he boots up Angry Birds on his phone. That was one of the best things I've seen in a movie as a kid. I was an Angry Birds fan, and the fact that the franchise got so huge that it appears on Hollywood movies was insane, and 1 year later, we got the actual movie, so that was fun. The downfall. The removal of the old games, poor business decisions, alienating its audience with bad games. These and other reasons are why we don't see Angry Birds anymore. After the first film, it was downhill. Even after the Sega acquisition, things don't look much better, but I blame Rovio for that. And with the recent situation of Rovio using AI art of Angry Birds in various cases, I think Rovio is not getting out of the pit anytime soon. Skunkbird. On April 1st, 2012, Rovio made a post on the Angry Birds social media accounts of an image with the caption, "Coming soon," and in that image, we can see a skunk-looking bird silhouette with alien antennas. Later that same day, the Angry Birds Twitter account released a tip to unlock this new character, and that was to pop precisely 22 pigs on the main menu. This, of course, was never actually true, and the skunk bird was just a joke made by Rovio. Angry Birds reference in The Simpsons. There's multiple Angry Birds references on The Simpsons. It's insane. My favorite is definitely the one where Homer is playing Vengeful Pigs. It's Angry Birds but with swapped roles. Something tells me that the people behind The Simpsons love this game. Adventure mode. What? This may be referring to Angry Birds Ghost campaign or Angry Birds Epics campaign. I have no idea what this entry means. If you have any idea, please leave it in the comments. Cluster Bomb. Okay, so from my understanding, Cluster Bomb is a fan-made bird that looks just like Bomb, and his ability is to divide into small bomb birds, just like the Bluebird. And he tracks down nearby pigs and blow them up. Sure, not bad. Scrapped Angry Birds Rio 2. There is not much information about the sequel to Angry Birds Rio, but I assume it was supposed to be themed around Rio 2. In the end, we ended up receiving an update with Rio 2 content to Angry Birds Rio instead of a full-blown game. I'm just assuming, of course. Angry Birds Space Beta. This entry refers to early builds and unused content of Angry Birds Space. There's 6 known prototypes of Space, with 5 being archived, and here's some interesting things that have been found. Originally, instead of getting the Iceberg, we would get a Snowball Bird, and since its design is similar to Bomb's, I assume Space Bomb would also not exist. A new character called the Black Hole Bird was found. He looks interesting. He would later be reworked as the Space Egg. An early design for Laserbird was also found, which looks similar, just without his visor. And the final character we have is the Drill Bird, a space version of the Green Bird that would drill through structures. Cool. That's just the characters though. There's a lot of stuff found on these builds, so if you're interested, make sure you visit the wiki for more information. Tiny Thief. Tiny Thief was a 2013 mobile game published by Rovio and developed by 5 Ants. It's a very different game from Angry Birds, that being we don't control the birds, but a thief. A tiny one in fact. The game's objective is completing missions like stealing objects, freeing animals, or people, only without being caught. It's a simple stealth game, but it was discontinued and removed from stores in 2016. Miyamoto wished he created Angry Birds. During an interview in 2012, Shigeru Miyamoto, yes, the Mario, Zelda and Pikmin guy, admitted that he wished he designed Angry Birds. It makes sense. Angry Birds is such a simple and easy game to play that captured the hearts of millions, just like some of Miyamoto's creations. So of course he wanted another icon on his name. Angry Birds Stella ending. The 2014 animated series Angry Birds Stella ends with Gale, the main villain of the series, turning into gold after an encounter with Stella. But after that, Stella brings Gale back to her normal form, and she launches the golden egg that caused all of this over the ocean. Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of the series and it finished with 26 episodes. So there's that. Celebrity Birds. The Celebrity Birds are caricatures of famous celebrities in the form of Angry Birds. Some include Matt Damon, Danny DeVito, and Don Cheadle from Space Jam 2. These were included in some ads for a tournament on Angry Birds Friends, but some other celebrity birds were created along the years. Shakira, Rush, Obama, there's a lot of them. Predator Pig. On the topic of celebrity birds, one stands up from everyone else. Dr. Pig Respect is a pig based on the streamer Dr. Disrespect, and if you know the drama that happened surrounding him in 2024, you know why everyone calls him the Predator Pig. Enough said. Jeff Mara. Jeff Mara was a kids channel that did a lot of Angry Birds toys reviews, and they were the best. If I show you on the screen some thumbnails and clips, you might recognize them. Nowadays, the channel is mostly inactive and they no longer post toy reviews, but it's to be expected. Well, duh, kids just grow up. But I'm happy they stopped and didn't get the same fate as Ryan's toys reviews. Piggy Island Theme Song. Piggy Island Theme Song is the track played when browsing the world map on Angry Birds Transformers. Nothing crazy. Angry Birds Mashems. These toys were kind of a collectible based on the Angry Birds characters that were made out of rubber with water inside of them. If you've seen that clip of EvanTube flying in space throwing Angry Birds, yeah, those were Mashems. I had 3 of these, a red, a blue and Matilda ones, but they all popped unfortunately. I remember they made some based on Angry Birds Space and those looked so much cooler. You can't buy them anymore, but I think that's for the best. Angry Birds Cheetos. This was an official game made by Rovio and to promote Cheetos in Turkey and Russia in 2012. It's very similar to collaboration games like Angry Birds Volcano, but Cheetos themed. The only downside to this game was its exclusivity with Facebook, and it had correlations with Angry Birds Chrome. It was later discontinued in 2013, but in the same year Angry Birds Cheetos 2 was released, and that one can still be played on Flashpoint. Trading Cards. This is an Angry Birds card game that follows the same rules as Rock, Paper and Scissors, except those are replaced with Stone, Slingshots and TNT respectively. This series includes 180 collective cards, in which are included gold, silver and holographic cards. I had some of these and they were okay, nothing special. Moscow. There was an event in 2015 to celebrate the launch of Angry Birds 2 in Moscow, and there was also a festival dedicated to the franchise in 2013. I don't understand why, but Russia loves Angry Birds. Angry Birds Flipnote. Flipnote Studio was a program that would let you make animations and share them to the world on your Nintendo DS. And like any popular thing on the world, people made Angry Birds animations. I think this entry is just referring to Angry Birds animations in general, nothing in particular. Angry Birds Heikki. Angry Birds Heikki was an online game about the racer Heikki Kovalainen. I'm so sorry I butchered your name. He's a Finnish F1 racer, so the game replaces some assets with F1 stuff like tires, champion cups, etc. This featured a new ability, the Heikki Power ability, which swapped your current bird with Terrence with an F1 helmet. Simple as that. And you could only activate it with a code found in the Heikki Power Kagan program on Facebook. The game was released in June 2012 and shut down on the end of 2012. The game was thought to be lost for some time, but fortunately it was found and properly archived. Mighty Philadelphia Eagle. This is an obscure character that only made an appearance on an equal obscure game, Angry Birds Philadelphia Eagles, a 2012 game featuring a collaboration with the NFL. The Mighty Philadelphia Eagle works similarly to the Mighty Eagle, but is summoned with the pig skin instead of the can. I guess everyone can be an Angry Bird now, even the Philadelphia Eagles logo. National Geographic. In 2012, National Geographic released an Angry Birds themed book called National Geographic Angry Birds, Fed Up, Feathered and Furious. It features fun stuff such as profiles of the Angry Birds characters and real birds around the world. It's obviously ironic, but it does give an insight on the profile of the characters of Angry Birds. Nigel Mashup. Cox Cockatoo, aka Nigel, is the main villain of the Rio movies and also Angry Birds Rio. And for the release of Angry Birds Rio, the people from Rovio picked a random clip from the Rio movie and edited it to include Angry Birds characters. And since this clip is focused on Nigel's song, it got the name Nigel Mashup. My Rio DVD had this video and I watched it hundreds of times. It's great. Welcome to Tier 5. We're officially on the bottom of the iceberg. Mighty Mouse. Originally, the sardine can that's used to summon the Mighty Eagle was a mouse called the Mighty Mouse. The design is nothing like an Angry Birds character, and it's kind of understandable why they changed it. The can is 100 times better and more iconic. Angry Birds Avengers. After Angry Birds Rio and Star Wars, people began speculating what the next collaboration game would be. And the main candidate was Angry Birds Avengers, or Angry Birds Marvel. That would have been cool, wouldn't it? It all began because of this image, which is very well known, but me and alongside many other kids thought that this was official material, which it wasn't. Angry Birds Avengers never existed, but Hulk Greenbird would have been awesome. Forgotten promos. This is referring to all the collaborations and promotions that were forgotten and sometimes even lost to time. These include collaborations such as Angry Birds Cheetos, Angry Birds Coca-Cola, and some others I've already mentioned. Russian bootleg. Maybe the title of this one is a little too ambiguous, cause believe it or not, there's a lot of Russian bootlegs of the Angry Birds game. But there's one that sticks out from the rest. This is a bootleg 8-bit version of Angry Birds made for bootleg consoles that disguise themselves as modern consoles, but they're actually NES emulators. But I digress. It has 20 levels and plays just like the original, but you only have Redbird. The levels are simpler because of the hardware's limitation and it's much slower. Not the best way to play Angry Birds, if it wasn't obvious. Angry Birds 4D. Angry Birds The 4D Experience, or Angry Birds The Ride, is a 4D movie experience created for theme park attractions. The movie has two versions, a 10-minute version for 4D theaters and a 5-minute version for motion simulator rides. It's a semi-obscure piece of Angry Birds media. Angry Birds Pokémon. No, Angry Birds never had a collab with Pokémon. This entry is most likely referring to a 2011 video by Fun Video TV. Pokémon starring Angry Birds 3D animated game mashup spoof. This is your classic Fun Video TV production, with the birds launching themselves and destroying the buildings, but this time with the help of Lugia and dragon-winged Larias. Weird. Angry Birds Pokémon can also be referring to the countless fan art and fan-made content between these two series. I think that's about it. PSP. In 2011, Angry Birds released for the PlayStation Portable, the PSP. It was released as a PSP mini title, which means it was a part of a line of casual games on the PSP. This port only had the first 4 episodes, from poached eggs to the big setup, and had all the classic icons and imagery. Not a bad way to play the classic game. Mr. Beast. For the 10th anniversary of Angry Birds, Rovio ran a campaign called Bring the Anger. During this event, Rovio made a partnership with UNICEF in which if the players pop 10 million pigs in Angry Birds 2 by December 1st, 2019, $100,000 were donated to UNICEF. The event was a success and ran 2 more times in 2020 and 2021. Now, where does Mr. Beast take place in all of this? He was sponsored by Rovio in one of his videos in part of the Bring the Anger campaign. Fart Smella. In early 2021, these images started popping up on the internet and quickly became a big meme for a week or two. The meme takes the Sam Spratt realistic Angry Birds drawings and tags them with random lines, such as, "I hear that you play Among Us, even in the coldest nights I eat my own cum," and of course, the most popular version, "You either a smart fella or a fart smella." There's many versions of the fart smella phrase, but this one is by far the most used. Angry Birds Starburst. Angry Birds Starburst is a 2016 web game that, surprisingly, is still available to play. It's an advert for Starburst candy, it only had 1 level, and plays similarly to Angry Birds 2, though the movements and the animation is stiff. It's a very simple game, and honestly, isn't as fun or interesting as the old web games. Angry Birds Land. This was an attraction in the Sarkaniemi Adventure Park in Tampere, Finland. This was the first Angry Birds theme park, and it featured attractions such as a drop tower and carnival games. The attraction opened in April 2012 and had been in operation for 11 years, with it being closed in 2023 due to the Angry Birds license being expired. Angry Birds Breakfast 3. This was the third installment in the Angry Birds Breakfast series, but what makes this one different is that it was a web game instead of a CD-ROM. This game was overlooked by many people, making it the most obscure entry on the Breakfast trilogy. Outside from that, it's not much different from the other two games. Angry Revolutionaries. Angry Revolutionaries is a 2012 video uploaded by Karabish on YouTube. It's an animation featuring the birds talking, and we have this weird looking king pig. I think it has some political meaning, but it's in Arabic, and even if I had a translation, I probably wouldn't understand the real meaning. Also, this is the infamous video that included Hal's dead body I've previously talked about. 3 Big Pigs. Similar to the last entry, this is a 2011 video uploaded by YouTube user Igor Zagun. This is a parody animation of both Angry Birds and the 3 Little Pigs story, and it has that old 40s animation style. This one is also a political cartoon, using the pigs to characterize the former president of Tunisia and Egypt, and the bluebirds as tweets. I didn't know it was a political cartoon, I thought the animation looked nice and it was Angry Birds. The video has 3 million views, so I'm definitely not alone in this. Promsvia's Bank Cards. Promsvia's Bank is a Russian bank, and in 2012 they introduced Angry Birds themed MasterCard debit cards. I am not joking. The cards came with different designs. We had this one with the Angry Birds spaced key art, one with red on the slingshot, and many more. Burger King toys. Since 2014, Burger King has partnered up with Rovio to release Angry Birds Kids Meal toys many times. In 2014 we had one for Angry Birds Go and Angry Birds Stella. In 2017 we received toys based on the movie 1 year after it released. Better late than never. I remember this one, I had the Bomb and Mighty Eagle toys. And in 2021 we got simple plushies of the characters. The last collaboration happened the same year, and with the constant downfall of the Angry Birds franchise, I doubt we'll ever get Kids Meal toys again. Chrome Dimension. This one is interesting. The Chrome Dimension is an episode on both Angry Birds Chrome and Angry Birds Google+, and to unlock the levels in said episode, you need to find Chrome symbols hidden throughout normal levels. The Chrome symbols and the levels work similarly to the Golden Eggs from vanilla Angry Birds, but I gotta be honest, compared to the Golden Egg levels, these are more basic and uncreative. No pig pile in this one. Chrome and Google Plus had its own set of levels, with Chrome having 21 levels and Plus having only 7. Pretty cool. Angry Birds.exe. After the Sonic.exe creepypasta hype, fan-made .exe versions of popular games appeared online, and Angry Birds was no exception. It's Angry Birds, but cursed and spooky. Boo. This one is lame. If you're interested in playing Angry Birds.exe, dude, you're just wasting your time. Smash 4's Target Smash was inspired by Angry Birds. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS featured a mode called Target Blast, where your goal is to launch a ticking bomb to the targets inside the structure. Now, was it inspired by Angry Birds? That's debatable, but I can see the devs being inspired by the mobile game to create the mode. Angry Birds Chinese animation. If you were an Angry Birds fan in the early 2010s and frequently watched Angry Birds videos on YouTube, or you were one of those unfortunate people that bought those bootleg Angry Birds DVDs, you probably have come across a weird Chinese Angry Birds 3D animation. It's about Red, Chuck, Bluebird and Hal creating a plan to defeat the pigs. Not much information is known about this animation. The only thing we know is that it's Chinese, unofficial, and was featured on bootleg DVDs. That's about it. It's a weird piece of Angry Birds media, but I kinda like this style. I highly recommend checking this one out, it's fun. Angry Birds Rockin' Rio. I've never heard of this one before researching for the Iceberg, but the idea is cool. Angry Birds Rockin' Rio was a crowd game shown on the event Rockin' Rio USA 2015. It was your classic Angry Birds gameplay, but to pull the slingshot back, you needed a crowd of people to shout. That's pretty nice. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, the game was never featured again on future Rockin' Rio events. Level Editor. The Level Editor is an in-game tool used by developers of Angry Birds to make, you guessed it, levels. This tool was only available on some games with the classic formula, until Angry Birds Star Wars 2. That's cool, but if the players also had access to that mode, it would have been so much better. Cancelled Angry Birds Star Wars ad. During the development of Angry Birds Star Wars and the new Jenga toys, a prototype commercial was made. It was more of a trailer than a TV commercial, but what stands out from this ad and was omitted from the final release was the inclusion of telepods on Angry Birds Star Wars 1. In the end, we only got the Jenga toys, and telepods would only make their debut on the series in Angry Birds Star Wars 2. NSA affiliation. In 2014, leaked documents revealed that the NSA, the American National Security Agency, were targeting personal data from various apps, primarily Angry Birds. Since Angry Birds is mostly played by kids, Rovio received major backlash. And Rovio, being Rovio, responded with ignorance and said that they had no knowledge about the NSA, which was bullshit. Jurassic Pork is unfinished. Jurassic Pork is the 14th episode of Angry Birds Classic, and this entry is saying that it's unfinished. I couldn't find much information about that statement, but apparently this episode doesn't include any golden eggs, and it was the last episode of Angry Birds Classic before Rovio started focusing on the modern games, so maybe that's the reason it was never fully completed. Angie Beeps. Angie Beeps was a parody mod created by Timek in 2021. It was a mod of the original Angry Birds, but with meme elements and other random stuff. The mod was abandoned and cancelled in 2022, so since then, it didn't get any more updates. I think the latest version is available on GameJolt, so you can check it out if you want. Le Film d'Horreur Creepypasta. As the name implies, this is an Angry Birds creepypasta, and finding information about this one was quite difficult. Apparently, this creepypasta has a more straightforward name, Lost Angry Birds DVD, and with that, it was much easier to find a creepypasta. This is your classic creepypasta, where a kid finds a cursed Angry Birds Toons DVD and finds some spooky and scary shit. It's something about the birds being tortured and killed, and apparently the map from Dora the Explorer and Daddy Pig from Peppa Pig is in this? Sure, I don't care. Reading this creepypasta was an emotional roller coaster, I gotta tell you that. Talking Red. Talking Red the Bird was a parody unofficial game that mocked both Angry Birds and the Talking Friends games. This game became a meme because of how absurd it is. The game never actually existed and was only made into reality by fans, somewhat recently with a web game, so now you can finally play the actual Talking Red. Beta build in the Angry Birds trailer. I'm not sure what this entry is talking about, cause I couldn't find anything proving that the gameplay featured in the original trailer is from a beta build. But, while searching about this topic, I found something more interesting. A small clip was discovered of a prototype version of the original cinematic trailer of the 2009 Angry Birds, and here we can see a completely different design for the pigs and Helmet Pig, cause he was never included in the release trailer. I just think it was a neat thing to share. Ill-Tempered Birds. Gotta love these bootleggers. Ill-Tempered Birds are a series of off-brand pencil toppers that were sold in gacha machines. As you can see, they look nothing like the real thing. And come on, why does this exist? Angry Birds Vuela Tazos. We already talked about Angry Birds Tazos and all the variants of the promotion, but in 2011, when PepsiCo ran the Tazos campaign in Latin America, a game called Angry Birds Vuela Tazos released. This game was similar to other promotional games like Angry Birds Volcano and included 6 exclusive levels, with the last 3 being locked behind codes that came with PepsiCo products like Pepsi, Sabritas, etc. The game featured competitions in which you could have won merch, but the last one was in 2012. The game is still available with all 6 levels unlocked, although it's only playable on PC. Angry Birds Legends. Angry Birds Legends was a 2020 RPG game that never ended up releasing. Similar to Angry Birds Epic, it was a turn-based RPG, but in this one, the birds and pigs teamed up with humans? Really, Rovio? The game was soft-launched in early 2020, and even in a beta state, it had microtransactions and battle passes. Great. Due to an unsuccessful test launch, the game was cancelled and the server shut down in 2021. Bomb Bomb. Bomb Bomb is an unused character found in the files of Angry Birds Seasons and Angry Birds Trilogy. Much isn't known about this character, except it looks similar to Bomb, but red and black, and smaller, and it's speculated that his ability was to split into 3, like the blues, and explode upon impact. No one knows why this character exists, nor why he was cut. How to Troll Le Pigs. Remember that meme of a 4-panel comic featuring the troll face giving a tutorial of something? Well, someone made an Angry Birds version of that. Dubbed How to Troll the Pigs, this is a 21 meme made by M Inc Official on YouTube. The first step to troll the pigs is to become a bird, Step 2 is getting your eggs stolen by Le Pigs, Step 3 is getting your revenge by attacking Le Pig's fort, and Step 4 and the punchline of the meme is forced to eat Le Pig's insides. Pig Fiction. 3 Lame Studio. This was a YouTube channel that posted weird animations of popular children's properties back in the day, like Five Nights at Freddy's, Dragon Ball Z, and Angry Birds. This was our brain rot. These animations were similar to Fun Video TV, but 2D and way more random. Some of these are hard to explain what's happening. Take a look at some. The weirdest ones are the ones mixing Angry Birds with IPs that you wouldn't expect, like American Dad and Cowboy Bebop. Me personally, I didn't watch this channel as much as Fun Video TV, and I think I only saw 2 or 3 videos of 3 Lame Studio. Most of his videos seem to have been posted past my Angry Birds phase. The original channel is still active, although the videos aren't available. If you want to watch the old videos, there's an archive channel that posted a bunch of them, and I highly recommend it for funs and giggles. Wonderful Pistachios. The wonderful company's Wonderful Pistachios collaborated with Angry Birds to release what? Another web game. Great. Like Angry Birds Volatazos, the game included 5 exclusive levels, with 3 being unlocked via code that came with Wonderful Pistachios. The main gimmick with this one is golden pistachios appearing on the special levels, and when destroyed, the player would be eligible to win a prize money of up to $25,000. Never heard of this collab before doing research. It goes to show how obscure it is. Angry Birds Skills. This was a 2014 web game released in the UK. To play this game, you had to obtain a code that came with Fruit Shoot Angry Birds edition drinks, and those were exclusive to the UK. Not much information is known about Angry Birds Skills, but we know it played similarly to Amazing Alex, but Angry Birds themed. Aside from some screenshots, short clips, and promotional material, the game is lost media. Fruit Loops. In 2015, Rovio collabed with Kellogg's for the release of Fruit Loops Bloopers, a special episode for Angry Birds Space. Only during this episode, the Mighty Eagle is replaced with Toucan Sam, Fruit Loops mascot. When activated, you launch a silver spoon and then a huge Toucan Sam is summoned and destroys everything in sight. This episode went all out with Fruit Loops imagery everywhere you look. Pretty good for a 5-level episode exclusive to select regions. Original main menu. If you're a long-time Angry Birds fan, you certainly remember the original main menu of Angry Birds Classic. This menu with the big Rovio logo and the sunrise background was only used on the first couple of versions of the game until 2010, when it was replaced with the one we all know and love, although I think the old one is a bit better. Original logo. Same with the old menu, this was the original Angry Birds logo used till 2010. This one used the Feast of Flesh font, interesting name, and was used in early merchandise. I like the 2010 logo, but honestly, I think the old one had more personality. I just don't understand why they got rid of the yellow and the feathers. Samba Bird. This is likely referring to the Samba Burst ability from Angry Birds Rio. The Samba Burst was a paid power-up exclusive to Angry Birds Rio, and when launched, all nearby structures danced to the rhythm before going back to normal after a short period of time. At some point, it was featured on the app's icon and some plush text. Not much to add to this one. Angry Birds PETA. This one disappointed me, cause you think this was about a parody Angry Birds game made by PETA, but unfortunately, it's not. Surprisingly, PETA never did something against Angry Birds. They did for Super Mario 3D Land, they did for Cooking Mama, Angry Birds was obviously the next target, right? The closest thing I could find to an official PETA statement on Angry Birds was a 2011 article about people with Angry Birds costumes protesting in front of a KFC. There is an article on the Angry Birds fanon wiki about the cancelled 2012 parody PETA Angry Birds game, but it's the fanon wiki, so it's unofficial. Angry Birds with guns. This entry can be referring to so many things. It could be referring to this 2011 video called Angry Birds Parody, where the birds and pigs use guns to kill each other. Maybe this 2012 video by CC Mega Productions called Real Life Angry Birds with Guns, where our main guy uses a revolver, is the actual video. There's so many videos about Angry Birds with guns, but these two are the most popular answers. Space Egg. The Space Egg is a power-up from Angry Birds Space, and more recently, Angry Birds Reloaded. This is a special item that when used and launched, creates a vortex and pulls nearby objects. The Space Egg was initially introduced as a playable character on special egg levels, but only for a limited time. Fun fact, Despite being an item, it received merchandise, including its own mashems. Angry Birds Crystal. In the early days when Angry Birds had just come out on iOS and Android, Rovio used something called the Crystal program, which was a way to track achievements, challenges, leaderboards, and social networks, since their games were published by ClickGamer. If you played the original Angry Birds in 2010 on mobile, there's a chance your app icon looked a bit different with a crystal and a rainbow strap on the corner. Well, that meant it was a part of the Crystal program. Since then, Rovio switched to Game Center and Google Play around 2010 and 2011, and the Crystal program no longer exists. Angry Birds Crystal was so short-lived that it was kinda hard to get any information on it. But I salute the Angry Birds wiki for being an amazing database on the franchise, and without it, this iceberg would have taken me a lot longer to research. The Angry Birds Iceberg, Gonkulus. Hey, I know this one, I made this one. For our last entry on tier 5, we have the Angry Birds Iceberg uploaded by YouTube user Gonkulus in 2021. This video was episode 13 of the original Gonkulus series, and currently sits on 14,000 views. Enough bragging. This was my first Angry Birds Iceberg on YouTube, and dude, I've come a long way. Probably the only thing I've retained from all these years is the mic. It's the exact same one. Can you tell the difference? Well, but without this video, I would've probably never made this one you're currently watching. It's certainly something to remember. And that does it for the Ultimate Angry Birds Iceberg Part 2. We're 2 layers and 1 part away from the ending, and this iceberg is finally complete. I'm so sorry for taking a while to release this one. I began writing the script last October, but then my health went down the shitter, and I simultaneously began working on the Shack Warfare, which was a massive project, and some other school projects. But don't worry about that, I'm doing much better now, and with part 2 finished, I've concluded all those projects. Thank God. Big thanks to Guy, aka Antipoda, aka Ogrish from the Shack Warfare. He co-wrote his part 2 of the iceberg, and when everything went bad, he gave an helping hand, and without him, this video would have probably taken more time to release. So thanks for the help. And now that part 2 is finally complete, what am I doing next? Maybe I'll become a streamer once again and stream something. I don't know, but stay tuned for that, I'm actually bringing that back very soon. Besides that, I'll spend my free time on it. Thanks for watching and see you next time.